we're moving on to our final story here. So if you have not seen this, it appears that, Briahna Joy Gray had an interview recently with Nina Turner. There were some things that were discussed in this interview that I do want to particularly highlight. I know some of you had some questions before about where is her new organization? We Are Somebody. Where is that going? Where is she going, politically, etc. But one of the things that they discussed to tie both of those things together is, what do you do now with what is left of the left movement? And is it possible for the political aspect, or let's say the electoral politics piece, and the workers' rights piece to coalesce together? And how would that look? So I want to go ahead and get into that interview. But first and foremost, if you have not done so, smash that like button, guys. Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and dive in right about here at 11:45.
Well said. I think one of the questions people are going to have about your new org, We Are Somebody, is how you plan to raise a lot of money. I mean, now this has been a concern among the left for a long time. The logic, at least before the kind of Bernie campaign to 2016 and 2020, was that unlike more centrist or right-leaning political efforts, the interests of the left don't align with the interest of most of the wealthy people in the country. We're trying to obviously raise taxes on the rich, do a wealth tax, expand the social safety net, etc. And that those are things that are against the interests of the people who tend to contribute millions of dollars to political campaigns. Now, Bernie's campaigns, especially 2020, in which he outraised every other person in the Democratic primary, despite their willingness to take corporate dollars and billionaire-backed bucks, indicated that there obviously is a wellspring of small dollar donations that can add up in a really, really big way. But I want to hear from you, what you've seen so far, or what you anticipate being able to accomplish in terms of the raw fundraising of this.
Yeah, we have to try. I mean, we're going to use every lever of fundraising that we can. We're going to do grassroots dollars. We're going to do more wealthy dollars, do grant money, and also institutional type donors. I can tell you from working, on the Sanders campaign, you and I did that together in 2020. I was with him in 2016 as well, is that there are some ultra wealthy people who know that the way the system is operating, it is untenable and ultimately is a threat to everybody. There are some conscious minded. I mean, some of those folks donated to Senator Sanders, obviously, even though the bulk of our money came from grassroots. And some of those people actually donated to me when I ran for Congress. In that first race, I was able to raise $7 million. Now, here's the key. There's a difference between raising money as a candidate and raising money for an organization, which is.
And let me pause right there, because this is the part that I want to get into. It is very difficult raising money as an organization. And I'm speaking from personal experience here. It is a lot easier for me to convince people to donate money to a candidate, which I have not done this year. I've not done that this election season, not since Bernie. But than it is for me to get people to donate to an organization that's actually helping people within the community, right? So we have the RBN chapters in different locations. I have the Boston RBN chapter here, and it's not as easy for me to get people to donate to like the RBN Boston chapter, which is directly going to benefit the people, than it is to get people to donate money to a political campaign, which at the end of the day, it really makes you think twice, because when you donate money to a political campaign, you are donating that money with the hope that that candidate is going to represent you and fight for the issues that they told you they would fight for. But that's not guaranteed. In fact, most of the time it's not going to happen, right? So you would think that people would be more inclined to donate to an organization that's actually going to help the people directly on the ground. To this point, this is why I did not understand why Nina Turner would start this organization, We Are Somebody, which is basically there to basically create like a strike fund to help out the workers, right? Why would you start that after Workers Strike Back launched in April earlier this year, why didn't you just join forces with the worker organization that already existed, which was just announced, to do that exact same thing? Why didn't you join forces with Shama Sawant and Socialist Alternative to help with Workers Strike Back? And there's a reason why I asked that question. Because when I looked at We Are Somebody, if you go to the payment option, Act Blue appears. So why is this worker organization strike fund connected to Act Blue? Act Blue is connected to the Democratic Party. So to me, there's just the flaggies, the red flags go off. But then also to add to that, on the left, we do not have a lot of resources. The right has more resources. We cannot continue to stretch ourselves more thin. So now you have people on the left trying to decide if they're going to donate to Workers Strike Back or if they're going to donate to We Are Somebody. Why are we dividing resources? To her point, to Nina's point.
Is a lot harder because the progressive base has been programmed, if you will. I'm not using programming in a bad way. The progressive movement itself started based on a presidential run, and it was a candidate. It was candidate based. And so I think the progressive movement is still very much driven by candidates. Another thing that We Are Somebody is going to do, Bridget, I'm getting back out here and I'm going to state to state. I'm getting back on the road, treating this like a campaign, is to try to get the progressive base to understand that we may not be able to accomplish a whole lot electorally. We're seeing it now, that people say one thing while they're running and they do another thing when they get elected. But I want to put that in the parking lot. There are ways, though, for us to have immense success without having any elected officials engaged. And that is primarily through ballot initiatives and what we're seeing the House of Labor do. And the other beautiful thing.
Let me pause here. So this is really interesting. She's right about the ballot initiatives. Like, we've covered ballot initiatives on this show for quite some time. If you look at my homepage on my YouTube channel, I have an entire section just for ballot initiatives that actually were on the ballot for 2022. We'll do the same thing for 2024, right? So again, I don't understand what is happening on the left, because all I see are us continuing to divide resources. And a lot of this has to deal with personalities. This is what I see, because I'm just like this. I don't really have to like someone, but if I see they're doing something, you know, like for the community or people, and they say, hey, would you like to be a part of this? I'll go be a part of the event in the organization. Hell, I don't like all y'all motherfuckers. I'm sorry, but I don't. I don't like all of these people that I run into, but I'm not going to just be like, oh, I don't like you, so I'm not going to attend the event. I'm not that way. But the thing is that I feel like on the left, people let personality conflicts stop them from actually bringing everybody on the left together where we could have greater numbers, particularly when it comes to direct action, when it comes to mutual aid, when it comes to these outside, organizing. We could have greater numbers, but we don't, because the left is divided by personality conflicts. So that's why we always end up showing out in smaller numbers. That's why we have less resources. And that's why our turnouts are just not as good. That's why we're less effective. So to me, it's just, I just don't get it. I really don't. I don't, man.
About the House of Labor, and I'm saying it very broadly, both unionized and non-unionized workers, is that in their workspaces, some of them voted for Senator Sanders, some of them voted for Secretary Clinton, some of them voted for President Obama, some of them voted for President Trump, some of them don't vote at all. Some of them are Black, white, Hispanic, the rainbow mosaic. But what they have in common is that they are being oppressed by a similar force. And that oppression forces them together by way they put aside their political ideology. That, Bree Joy, I think, is the sweet spot to deal both with class and caste. It is not lost on me. So everybody needs to understand this,
But isn't that the same thing? See, this is the part, I feel like there's the personality conflicts that are at play here. What Nina Turner just said, about bringing people together in reference to these labor struggles and putting your political ideology to the side. Isn't that the same thing that a lot of us have been saying for the past couple of years, but we were smeared as right wing? We were smeared as secret Trumpers. I was told I was a part of a red-brown alliance. You see, it's just like these kind of things to me. There is a level of elitism on the left. This is not just an issue in the Republican Party, Democratic Party. This is not just a political, ideology issue. There is a level of elitism. And it seems like to me, if an idea or strategy does not come from that TYT realm of the left interweb, it doesn't count. That's what it seems like to me. Just something that I've noticed. And look, I'm all for helping the workers, all for ballot initiatives, those kind of things. But the thing is like, I feel like what Nina has created here, I get the impression, especially with the Act Blue attachment, I get the impression that this is more about taking that energy on the outside and funneling it into the Democratic Party. If there wasn't an Act Blue attached to this, I would probably think differently. But I want to know, why is Act Blue a part of this?
I understand that you cannot fully deal with the class dynamic without dealing with caste. And when I mean caste, I mean race. And when I'm talking about race, I'm primarily talking about anti-Blackness, which is the foundation to all the other isms that we have to fight in this country. My job as leader of this organization is not just the strike fund, is not just to organize and amplify. It is also going to be to educate and try to build a broad-based coalition outside of a currently elected personality, and to show the progressive base that we can have wins in real time and change material conditions in real time, and let other groups work to get more people elected that hopefully will have the intestinal fortitude to do what it is they said they were going to do when they get elected.
This is the same thing that Shama Sawant's workers' strike back already does. The exact same thing.
I mean, I definitely think it's the case that people, at least in my audience, let's say, and I think a significant section of the left, feel a lot more optimistic about labor activity than electoral opportunities.
I do too.
And therefore might be more willing to start to put their dollars behind labor efforts than electoral efforts. But I should also give voice to the fact that I do think that part of what has driven a sort of a spending freeze in terms of political donations from these small dollar donors was the experience of giving to the Bernie campaign and being told that it was something more than a campaign, that it was in fact a movement and not just a candidate, and feeling like those promises weren't really borne out. And I've heard that over the last couple of years as I've covered various congressional races and asked about people's interest in funding those races. And there was a lot of pessimism about the fact of being a low wage earner and giving your hour, 2 hour, 3 hour salary in terms of a $7 or $27 donation to a cause that ultimately ended up not having legs. So I wonder how much you've heard from people about that, and whether or not you have any concerns about your ability to fundraise, given there's that sort of pessimistic sentiment out there.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm going against a tidal wave, and I understand that. But this is where something that James Baldwin once said is very instructive for this moment, when he said that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Yes, I could have sat back and said, oh, my God, let me wait till I decide whether I'm going to run for another office again. Or I could say, here's a need, here's an opening. How can I use my leverage to show not just our movement, but to show everyday Americans that things can change, and the power in a lot of cases is in our hands, and we don't have to sit back and wait for the right elected official or right group of elected officials who will have intestinal fortitude to get things done. So yes, Briahna, it is true. I hear it. I hear it all the time.
So I just want to say that part is true. You don't have to wait for elected officials to get out there to get things done. In fact, people that have been organizers have not been. That's the thing. See, this is the thing. When Bernie suspended his campaigns 2016, 2020, those of us that are organizers and activists, we had something to go back to. See, this is the thing. And I think, Bernie, he energized people to get people, into the streets, to push for a better life, to push for better wages, to push for better health care for people in this country. But like I said, after those campaigns ended, all of that energy that Bernie Sanders was able to garner, he did not take that energy and do anything else with it after the fact. And he had the numbers to do that. And that was on purpose. Like, this guy's old enough. You can't trick me. This guy's old enough. He knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't intend to do anything with that energy after the fact. So the thing is this, I agree with her when she says that you don't have to wait for these elected officials to get something done. That's right. But what I'm trying to figure out is, why are you then in turn trying to create something that is the same thing that Workers Strike Back is? Actually, Workers Strike Back might do a little bit more. That Workers Strike Back is, instead of just collaborating with what already exists and was announced this year, unless you are trying to take some of this energy and put it into the Democratic Party. Because that's what it seems like. That's really what it seems like. And I would ask her this question. LPA Film says Nina might not come on anyone associated with RBN show. She might be scared, LOL. I've interviewed a lot of people on the show, but if I did interview her, I have no contact info for her. But if I did interview her, I would ask her that question. And I don't think she should be afraid of that question. I would ask that question. Why you create the same organization that Shama Sawant already created this year? Why not collaborate your efforts instead of creating something totally brand new and dividing resources and dividing people? That would be, honestly, that would be my only question, probably.
I know that makes the endeavor of We Are Somebody a lot harder, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. I would rather say that I got out here and tried than to say I sat back because of fear and I didn't try when I see a need, and I still have both the national and international cachet necessary to do this. And that is why I'm getting back out on the road, because I want people to see me, be able to touch me, be able to hear me, and get them as amped up as I am able to do. I need them to believe again, not just believe in individuals who are elected, but to believe that we as individuals, whether you identify as progressive or not, if you are a working class person and you don't have a sugar daddy or sugar mama or sugar somebody, we are all in this together. Some of us are blessed to be at the top of the hierarchy of the working class. Some are in the middle or some at the bottom. But bet your bottom dollar, most of us work for a living, and we have to work for a living. And in that, there is some solidarity.
Senator Turner, you just alluded to, decision making around whether or not you might run for office again. When you were teasing We Are Somebody, a lot of people were wondering if you were in fact teasing a campaign announcement. How seriously are you thinking about running for office again? And do you think it would be, even hypothetically, do you think it would probably be still in the House of Representatives, or are you looking elsewhere?
So this is another thing. Nina starting this organization could be part of an effort to launch another political run for Nina Turner. So then it seems like to me, basically copying the socialist alternative model, which is what Shama Sawant did. Organizing with people in the streets first, the Fight for 15, for Amazon, organizing with the community, and then the candidate coming from that organizing space. It could be that as well.
I'm looking elsewhere. I'm looking at a couple of places right now. I did an excellent job. I was very good at it, and I enjoyed the work, even though it was very hard, because I am the type of person that I'm going to do what I think is right. And if other people don't agree, that's on them. But I got to be able, there's an ultimate power in my mind that I answer to at the end of the day. I may run again. I'm not all cards on the table. And yes, a lot of people, I got so many calls, Rejoice, so many text messages. And some people were delighted to see that the announcement was an organization, and others were really disappointed. And they let me know many people want me to run. There's not a day that goes by, or let me just say a week that goes by, where somebody is not saying to me they wish that I would run again. I was just recently in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, there with some striking UAW workers too, in New York. Like everywhere I go, Rejoice, to this very day, people are asking me, am I going to run again? So I want them to hear here first on your show that all options are on the table for me. But I don't just want to get out there and just run for anything. I got to make sure it's not necessary. I mean, you run in the win. And I've sacrificed a lot, as you know, and many of your viewers have know 2 presidential campaigns, 2 back-to-back congressional runs. And we know that the forces came at me very hard. And I am often reminded that they came at me so hard because they know what I would do once elected to office. I'm going to stand by my word.
I do.
So my whole thing is if she's planning to run through the Democratic Party again, I'm just like, what's the point? Why? Now, before we get to the point here about the money, because there's another piece here where they talk about like the lobbies that went after Nina, like the PACs that went after her, which is still relevant today. This is the part that I was talking about, guys, and then I'll come back to that video. If you go to We Are Somebody, why does this, like, watch this. Paid for by Act Blue and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Paid for by Act Blue Civics. So I hear paid for by Act Blue, paid for by Act Blue Civics. Act Blue Civics contributions or gifts made to other organizations through Act Blue Civics are likewise not deductible. Why is this connected to Act Blue? That's my question. So if I go in and I want to donate, let's just say $10, credit card. See, one of the things that pop up says have an Act Blue Express account. Why? See, that's the thing that I question. Because if this is just about the workers and organizing those people, which I think that's great. Again, like I said, I think it would have been better if you collaborated your efforts with the organization that is already there. But I will also say, if this is connected to Act Blue, that right there gives me pause. Because that tells me that some way, shape, or form, I feel like this is going to be connected to the Democratic Party. So we'll go back into the part where they talk about the money situation in reference to PACs like AIPAC that did come after Nina's race.
I want to talk about that just a little bit if we could, because those of us who were following it understood that you were up significantly in the polls before AIPAC, DMFI put millions of dollars against you and for Shontel Brown in your race. And that has been a pattern across the country where AIPAC has specifically targeted left-leaning, specifically targeting Black and brown left-leaning candidates because of their support of the people of Palestine and ending Israel's occupation there. And in fact, it hasn't been limited to Black candidates. Notably, Andy Levin, a Jewish candidate who was, I understand, I think a synagogue leader or something like that.
Yeah, he was
deeply involved in his own religious community, had his campaign ended after AIPAC aligned against him. I think Summer Lee was one of the few that were able to survive the AIPAC success rate. I think they have a 98% success rate in races that they enter. This is not a problem that's going away, and in fact may become more acute because of the ongoing crisis in Gaza since October 7th. So I wonder if you are looking ahead, not just for your own candidacy, but for the candidacy and of a number of progressive incumbents that are now being targeted by their fellow members of Congress, et cetera, because of taking a stand in defense of the people of Palestine's right to exist. How you reckon the left is going to start to get around that, if it can get around that?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. There's no doubt about it. I mean, as you laid it out, and my race became the template. When the leader of DMFI was interviewed, he made it very clear that I think they may have called it the Ohio 11 strategy. And Congresswoman Lee benefited from time, right? Her and her team were able to see what happened to me. And then also the forces supporting her, institutional forces, came out a lot stronger on her behalf. And I am so glad that that happened for her. But as you just laid out, a lot of them, including herself, they're being targeted again. I see this in a multifaceted way. The progressive left is going to have to mature tactically and strategically. We have to admit that we are infants in this game. I mean, it blossomed. The genesis of the 20th century or 21st century, progressive movement came in 2016. Those are the facts. It is still an infant, this movement, compared to neoliberalism and other structures that have been around a lot longer than the progressive movement. So the movement itself, and I don't know the how, is going to have to mature tactically and strategically. Because
what movement, though? Like, I feel like Nina's still talking about the progressive movement as though it still exists the way it did during Bernie's campaigns. I don't see that. I don't know if you guys see that, but I don't see any movement on that front. The movements that I see happening are people out in the streets, are the people who are organizing, people organizing within their community, not that Bernie progressive wave movement. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again in reference to like a progressive movement in the Democratic Party because of Bernie Sanders, because of the letdown of him and what he has done, because of the disappointment with squad members. I don't think we'll ever see. I went to Bernie rallies and there were over 10,000 people. I don't think we'll ever see that again with another progressive running the Democratic Party. I mean, it's kind of just turned into a joke now. Like how you go from, you had a candidate that had tens of thousands of people showing up to rallies. Now you have like Cenk Uygur running for like how you go from that to that. So it's very clear to me. I feel like Nina's still talking about the progressive movement as though it's still like 2016 or 2020, and it's not. I'll let her finish up here.
As we fight not only forces that are against progressivism, we're also the neoliberals, but we're fighting multi-front wars God, I even hate to use the word war at this point, Bree Joyce. So let me back that up. We're fighting on multiple fronts. And it is very hard for a new movement to be able to do that without maturing and getting some sophistication on how we deal with it. On the bright side of this, we have shown through both candidacies of Senator Bernard Sanders and also in my first race that you alluded to, that special election in May of 2021, I was up 30 points and they walked me down. And one of the reasons why they were able to walk me down or walk us down, because I want to shout out all the people across this country who were right there with me, is because that vacancy, there was not an official vacancy because now Secretary of HUD, Marshall Fudge, had not been appointed. And so, but that made in lie that the governor of the state could not give a date. Had that race been in May of 2021, I would be Congresswoman Nina Turner. And they came at me because I am a humanitarian. I was threatened. I was called by prominent Jewish leaders who I had worked with in my city, told that I must disavow the squad, overlaid their disdain for the squad on me, even though I wasn't in Congress. I served in the Ohio Senate, these very areas. Part of Ohio 11th was my Senate district. And I got to tell you, Bree Joy, it was one of the most painful moments, of my professional life, to have people who know me, who I serve, to tell me I must disavow some people for some things that they said that they didn't agree with. The only thing
But the squad had no problem disavowing Nina. See, this is the thing. Nina was willing not to disavow squad members in order to help her campaign. But the squad members had no problem disavowing Nina Turner, with the exception of AOC, who endorsed her the night before at the last minute. This is why I say you just can't do this through the Democratic Party. This is exactly why.
Ever said, and I will continue to say, is that I believe in justice and security for Palestinians, and I believe in justice and security for Israelis, period. That's all I ever said. And I was labeled, as you know, I mean, you saw what happened to me, and it was very, very chilling. In that special election, 4,000 Republicans crossed. I mean, it was so bad, people crossed over. I have emails that were shared with me by some of my Jewish allies of how organized locally some forces in the community were to come up against me to stop my candidacy simply because I am a humanitarian and I care very much about the Ohio 11th district.
And we'll go ahead and stop it there. So one thing that I do want to say is this just goes to show you again, like I said before, how powerful some of these PACs like AIPAC can be, how they pour in the money last minute, how they flood the TVs with ads and things like that. That happened to Summer Lee as well, right? So you can't even say what Nina just said, which is similar to what Summer Lee said. You can't even say that and say you care about both groups of people. To them, that's still considered to be anti-Semitic. So they'll still, basically, they want you to put one group of people over the other group. And I think you guys can get what I'm getting at here. But the thing is that all that money came pouring in from those groups. Next thing you know, they were smearing her. They've done this to other candidates as well. And to her point, when she says all the Republicans crossed over and joined in that effort to prevent her from having this opportunity to win. Well, again, that just goes to show you, as I've said before, this is why you can't run in this two-party system. This is why you can't go into the Democratic Party. This is why you can't go into the Republican Party. The best thing you can do right now, if you're going to run electorally, is to either run as an independent or run as a third-party candidate. And for the people who have been telling me that independents don't ever have a chance, or they're not even polled, they're not even mentioned, apparently you see this time around that is not the case. Last night we covered the fact that RFK Jr. is in a three-way race with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. He is polling very well as an independent. Cornel West, he's polling double digits. Cornel West is polling at 8% in the poll I showed you last night. So we are seeing a shift. The American people are hungry for something else. More Americans want third party. More Americans want a workers' party, right? So these things can change. But I just think what I saw from that interview, even though I hear the criticism of the Democratic Party and criticisms of what was the progressive movement, it is very clear to me that I think Nina is still not ready to let go of the Democratic Party. And that in itself is a problem. I personally don't want to be a part of a party that doesn't want me to be there and has done all these things to you. We go to some of the comments here. Robert says, get Cynthia McKinney on your show. Oh, it's been a while since I had. Okay, so Cynthia McKinney usually does press days. So she'll have like one day where she'll go on multiple shows during that whole day because Cynthia McKinney's in Asia. But you just reminded me I should ping her again. Thank you for the super chat, Janice. Turner is a Dem with a not so great voting record when she held office. Using left rhetoric doesn't make you left. Actions talk, BS walks. LBA, oh yeah, I said that. Whoever said, I would argue that Workers Strike Back does more, is going to do more, and stands for way more. And a kid says Nina Turner is not to be trusted and she is trying to co-opt Workers Strike Back. That's the same feeling that I get. I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric, and then we can skedoodle. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin hemp car. Palestine is still the issue by John Pilger. Occupation 101 was a movie we played on campus when I was in SDS. On the cover, they had this quote, "The only thing worse than ignorance is the illusion of knowledge." Stephen Hawking's. Also, Ken O'Keefe says he's willing to die for Palestine. He received the keys to Gaza. The cynic is the tyrant's best friend, as he says. And thank you for this tip, Roger. Bernie lost because he was weak. It takes strength to win, which meant if he would have won, that meant he would have had the strength to push for those policies. Even with trying to getting it passed in Congress. If he was strong, he could have used the bully pulpit to bully Congress into supporting his policies. Same way Trump bullied GOP by turning his base against them, telling them to show up. Oh, that's a good point. Telling them to show up at their office, call their office, get down with the get down, or face the wrath of my base. If that didn't work, he could have used Section 1881A of the Social Security Act to get it to them, or grant federal waivers to states who wish to offer their own single payer plan. Nina, you said CBIs. Okay, well, East Palestine in your home state needs TRICARE for all. Run a CBI amendment to Ohio Constitution to get them and everyone in Ohio TRICARE for all, as well as Ohio Public Bank for infrastructure, and build the Ohio economy. Place Ohio minimum wage to stay permanently above local housing costs. Outlaw speculation starting with housing and go from there. Stationalize, municipalize hospitals and medical facilities. And thank you for this as well. Initiative amendment saying before companies pack up and leave Ohio, further automate before they go public, or if they already have or merged, they're mandated to make an offer their workers with the help of the government to purchase the company. Establish government agencies that can do for co-ops what Fed small business admin does for small businesses. I make the same argument to Greens. Prioritize CBIs, not running candidates. All right. Thank you so much for that. And I believe I have one more super chat. Thank you, Italian Stallion. Nina defeated herself when she defended the squad doing nothing, then said she would do the same thing. Also, another good point, Italian Stallion. All right.